Okay, so we are talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs once again. A few days ago, we made a video talking about William Nylander and the unfortunate update in that situation. Long story short, both sides, Nylander and the Leafs, stand still, good, the bad, and the ugly style. They're going out there and dueling pistols, seeing which one bites first. I actually have not seen The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, so I don't know if that's in the movie or not. I apologize. It's on my plan to watch, but today Barbie and Oppenheimer are taking up my attention. Either way, today we have ourselves an update not just on Nylander, but on the other guy that is also a pending UFA to be for the Toronto Maple Leafs, Auston Matthews. Our update comes to us in the form of Elliotte Friedman, who went onto NHL Network the other day, and I just wanted to give a big shout out to the NHL Network folks and all the other media outlets, all the people in the media that are still publishing articles and doing things at this time in the off-season, because it's literally the off-season. We haven't had ourselves a big move or a signing or a trade in ages. This is pure dead zone territory when it comes to National Hockey League material. So when it comes to Friedman going out there and giving this update, good on him for giving the fans content to be excited for. But we're going over onto Spectre's Hockey from yesterday, July 19th, 2023, because what Lyle Richardson does is he summarizes the Friedman hit on TV. Of course, NHL Network is a TV program, so I can't just copy and paste the video clips on the screen, so we're going over onto Lyle Richardson's latest piece because he summarizes it pretty well. So, without further ado, let's go over onto what Elliotte Friedman said regarding William Nylander and Auston Matthews. Starting out with Nylander. Friedman reports that the contract negotiations between the Leafs and winger William Nylander appear to remain at a standstill. He doesn't see any movement in those talks until one side budges. He later added that if other players aren't going to take a little less to remain in Toronto, then neither will Nylander. And essentially, this update is exactly the same as the update we had a few videos ago. It's just being repeated once more a few days later. And that in and of itself doesn't really provide any new perspective, but it kind of gives us a tad of a hint as to what might actually be the ultimate conclusion here. Because even though we did see ourselves an entire Nylander contract negotiation process play out like this in the past, you gotta remember this literally happened a few years ago with this same player, with William Nylander being in a position where, yet again, he is debatably getting the short end of the stick here. The Maple Leafs do not want to pay him the money that he could be worth on the open market because they've got contracts tied up in other guys. Pretty simple conclusion there. However, when it comes to the idea of the Maple Leafs players not taking less, there is no incentive for Nylander to take less too, and that is in and of itself kind of just the business here, especially in Toronto when it's already been established that so many of these guys can get big money contracts, and William Nylander already took the short end of the stick back in 2018 when he signed for that $6.9 million AAV contract. It's kind of crazy because 2018 was literally 5 years ago, but for Nylander, already in the final year of that deal, his modified no-trade clause has already kicked in, and the Maple Leafs themselves are not willing to give him that $10 million contract. Which, I'm going to go out there and say it again, I do think that he's worth the money, he is very good, and he's consistent as well. Another 80-point year for Nylander, 40 goals on top of that too. We all know that Nylander is talented, and when it comes to the reliability of this guy, he is, in a way, more important than guys like Matthews and Marner because he shows up in the second round. Haha. So, for Nylander, it is kind of interesting to note that this still is the case, how both sides are in the same position that they were in a few days ago or a few weeks ago when we last talked about Nylander. It's kind of like the Cold War or trench warfare or whatever. Both sides just kind of sticking in their own part of the field, not really advancing to the opposite side, just waiting for the other party to make the move. Yeah, can you tell I'm excited to see Oppenheimer? Barbie first, though, of course. We also have ourselves some more Spectre's notes written about here in the Spectre's Hockey piece regarding the Nylander contract situation. Reports earlier this month claim that Nylander is seeking an AAV of $10 million on his next contract, while the Leafs are offering between 8 and 9. He's coming off of back-to-back 80-point performances, including a career-high 88 points, playing second-line minutes. I'd say Nylander makes a reasonable case for seeking that much. If the Leafs won't pay it, somebody else will if he hits the open market next July with the salary cap projected to jump at least by $4 million for 24-25. Clubs who consider Nylander as a first-line guy will pay him what he wants, especially if he reaches or exceeds 80 points again. Some observers believe Leafs GM Brad Treliving will trade Nylander before the start of the season, rather than go through another season of uncertainty as he did in 21-22 with Johnny Gaudreau. There are also some others who feel the Leafs could retain Nylander for the coming season and see how things play out on the ice and in contract talks. Now, we've talked about all of this over the past few days as well, that Nylander, represented by the same agent that represented Johnny Gaudreau, and of course Brad Treliving for the Leafs, was formerly of the Flames, so it's a repeated song and dance here. But when it comes to Auston Matthews, this is where Friedman gives us the better update. Because on NHL Network he said this, that news is better regarding Auston Matthews' negotiations. Friedman believes the Leafs superstar will reach an agreement on the deal that is between 3 to 5 years in length, and Friedman believes it will happen, but is not sure when. There is, of course, a lot of concern as to what the AAV is going to be on Matthews. We had talked the other day about the idea of him getting the highest AAV in the NHL, if he gets $13 million or whatever, over Connor McDavid's $12.5 and Nathan MacKinnon's $12.6. If Auston Matthews gets a certain number, he'll be paid a lot more than Connor McDavid had been over the span of their first, 11 years in the NHL, something like that. Either way, you have your Spector's note saying this, no word on how much of a raise Matthews will receive over his current $11.6 million AAV. Some believe it could exceed the league-leading $12.6 of Colorado's Nathan MacKinnon, ranging from between $13.5 to $14 million. Whatever Matthews agrees to will affect Nylander's talks with Toronto. Now, I'm going to go out there and say it. Even with the cap going up being considered, Auston Matthews, $14 million? Come on, man. Like, the difference there, if you go off of McDavid's 12.5 or McKinnon's 12.6, is about $1.4-ish million. And you could get some pretty all-right necessary players for your team with $1.4 million. Depending on how you play your cards, you could sign a guy to an ELC that happens to be a lot better than that. So this amount of money is so big that I just don't understand how this is going to fit with what it is the Maple Leafs are trying to do with Nylander, nor do I understand if this is really the appropriate dollar amount. Like, sure, if Auston Matthews goes to free agency, he'll get $14 million because teams overpay for free agents. But where does that Toronto love come in? We talked the other day about Mitch Marner's comments and how he feels that he is going to treat Marner and Matthews, or not Marner and Matthews, he's going to treat himself and Matthews, yeah. No, Marner said he's going to treat Nylander and Matthews more as friends rather than as teammates when it comes to how he's going to give input in this situation. Whether or not it's either sides or one side talking to him about it, Marner is going to say, yeah, my buddies are my buddies and they deserve to get paid. Of course, you could read into it and say that he doesn't really feel like signing team-friendly deals is worth it for anybody involved, but that's kind of the implication that he had with those comments. It's why it ruffled a few feathers, after all. And so, if Matthews gets an extension soon, which Friedman is expecting is going to happen, he gets a 5-year, $13.5 million AAV deal. All of a sudden, Nylander has no right to go out there and say, yeah, I'll accept your 8.5, Toronto. I'll take it, that's fine. He's going to demand more, because nobody else has taken that pay cut. And you have the same thing repeating itself next year with Tavares and Marner. So this update from Friedman is quite alarming if you're going out there and trying to pacify your Toronto Maple Leafs mind. However, you just gotta wait till that first domino falls, either with Toronto and William, or with Toronto and Auston. Because if that Matthews contract gets signed and it's a ludicrously big amount, like it rivals the same dollar amount that Matthews could have gotten with the free agent market next year, then goodbye Nylander. He's not going to stick around. He's got no incentive to. If Matthews gets a big money deal, Nylander is going to demand a big money deal, because if he goes to the market too, he'll get 10.5 maybe even, because he's a point per game guy who is still relatively young and who has a lot of success. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about this Elliotte Friedman update regarding Nylander, Matthews, and the Maple Leafs contract negotiations. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.